Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to our last session of first day of EAGE 25, Bridging Minds and Building Communities. Part of our colleagues are joining a workshop for the project right now, so we will start now. First, let me please welcome our keynote speaker, Mr. Mehedi Hasan Limon, Vice President of Public Sectors, Education and Healthcare of Huawei, Middle East and Central Asia.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Last session, so pressure is heavy. Must be very tired. I will not talk too much. I will not take too long of your time. But whatever I'm going to cover today, that is, we call it reinvention. We already implemented this globally, and now I'm just sharing the stories that how Huawei sees digital transformation in education. Nowadays, everywhere we are using AI, even AGI, right? So this AI, whenever we use this AI, as Huawei, we are very much conscious, the industry we are using AI. I mean the word. Unless this latest technology, cutting-edge technology, it can be AI, big data, cloud computing, machine learning, any of this technology, AR, VR, XR even, unless these technologies are useful inside the classroom. So we do not want to use those words. So we make sure this AI really helping our students, our teachers, our managements, even for the nation, right? My name is Mehedi Hasan Limon. You can see I also have a Chinese character. Any of you can speak a little bit of Chinese? No. So my name is Limon. It's a Chinese name. I did my study from China. The reason I'm saying it, China has a huge number of population, right? So 1.4 billion people. And they made, they made their basic education totally under one network. So they made the basic education network one unified network. Their university, they also did a lot of digitalization. How they did it? It's a massive country and massive workload, right? So this is morely I will be sharing with you during my slides and how we can see AI can play a role in education industry. I like this slide because wherever I visit, my job is to travel the country, different places, and share their stories, how the other countries have good stories, right? I like this slide because now countries are not only talking about digital transformation. Country is not only mentioning digital transformation or artificial intelligence, they are implementing in their system. 170 countries, 170 plus countries actually, they already have digital transformation. And not only that, almost every country, they have education digital transformation. So all the countries, they understood, okay, digital transformation, if we want to make a digital government, education is one of the key. This message is clear for globally, for the world. Now the question comes is how we really can implement this digital transformation inside our industry and how it is, reflecting or impacting our industry, right? If you see the right side of the slide, in global, to simplify this, if in next 2 to 3 years, if your economy is $100, if your GDP is $100, digital transformation or digitalization will have $38, which means 38% of your GDP will be based on digital transformation. And every year, the growth is 20% until 26, 27. So this is going exponential growth of digital transformation. And education, whenever we talk about education, there is a huge talent gap also. Whatever industry requires this digital transformation, we have almost 66 million talent. We have a gap. Now, as I mentioned you that China, I also did my study in China and I represent a company it's called Huawei. This is also a Chinese company. We did a research and we found that 2001, when China graduate number was 1.14 million, and now 2024, I mean last year, it went 10 times, right? The graduate numbers is 11.79 million. So 10 times the graduate number increased, and see the GDP. GDP increased 14 times. It means the moment we invest in education, we can see rapid growth of our GDP. So this is proven. And you see, like the left side also, it didn't work or it didn't happen in one day. Starting from 2001, it's a long history, right? And every year it has a different type of a strategy that government took, starting from the digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. How they did it and what we think that it is impacting in the industry. Now, when we talk about AI, AI is not, as I mentioned also starting, that AI is not just we are using the AI. How AI is going to impact for our students, learners, teachers, management, and also other stakeholders of the education industry. We found that many transformation going on in industries. I think many of you using the ChatGPT or DeepSeek, right? So, any ChatGPT users? Yeah, DeepSeek. You are using DeepSeek. Okay, ChatGPT, right? So there are so many AI model, LLM model nowadays. So when we talk about AI, ChatGPT, or DeepSeek, how we use those actually? We can do our, we can do our own risk calculation, risk analysis. We can install the app in our phone and we can start using it. It's very simple and easy. That's the reason when DeepSeek or ChatGPT come, it only 4 days, it got 1 million users. Even DeepSeek went 10 million users, now even 20 plus million users that DeepSeek has. So when we talk about this type of AI adaptation, there are two types of adaptation. One adaptation for the individual adaptation, that's very easy to implement it. Another adaptation is more critical, that is institutional adaptation. Now the question is, we are using DeepSeek, we are using ChatGPT. Is this ChatGPT or DeepSeek we will allow our student to use inside the classroom, right? So there comes the strategy. And here is the institutional adaptation. Until we have a policy, we cannot implement those type of strategy. I travel lately, many countries, Central Asia, some country, they allow their students to go remote education for primary school. Some country, they say, no, my students should come inside the class, right? So there are so many debates nowadays going on that how we implement this type of AI model inside the classroom. Now, model is not one. Every tech companies nowadays, they are launching one new model. When we talk about education and implementing AI model, the question is which model to choose, how we can build this AI model. Any of the model you mention, then whenever you process their data, you have to send back to them the data, process the data, and bring the data back. It means data sovereignty is at huge risk. We found only one model that working perfectly and offline. So that model is DeepSeek. So whenever universities, educational institutions, they are using an AI model for education purpose, they want to make sure two things. One is that their data is very secure, and second thing is that data is not very costly. It should be cost effective, especially for the education industry. When we are using the DeepSeek, we found the cost is very insignificantly lower. For example, if you go, if you build any of the AI model, if it's $100, you use the ChatGPT, it will be $10. This is how it's cost effective. The second is, this is open source. And you can make it offline. For example, we can train the AI model under your university curriculum or your Ministry of Education, your school curriculum, and then that model will run locally. Your data is safe, your data is secure, and your data is cost effective. So that's the reason we did a lot of implementation and we built an AI model. Not only that, we also implemented multiple universities, multiple colleges in China and beyond the China. Now, with all these things, what do we want to do? We see a vision that education should be accessible for everyone and education should be high quality. So how we do that? We made a framework, we call it 1+3 framework. That framework actually suits for any of the industry, like for the primary schools, higher schools, and also national research and scientific network, right? It's very difficult for us because we are not professors. We understand IT, we understand CT as a Huawei. So we use the technologies and work with professors like you, and we found a blueprint that is called 1+3 that mostly cover each and every segment of the education industry. First one, digital training. Second one is a smart classroom. a smart campus, and scientific research. What we are learning today inside our schools or classrooms, that has a huge gap what industry required, right? So this is what we found, that 66 million talent gap in the industry. Already we can see that gap. And that gap, no one in the industry who is addressing those gaps. So we launched a solution, it's called digital training solution. What we do that? How we solve the problem? First, we set up a AI lab for our students and we solve the real problem. For example, autonomous vehicle. How that autonomous vehicle algorithm works in real life, how it can be impactful for the student's future. And then on top of it, we have a learning platform, all the learning content and also course materials that is very much related to the industry. As a Huawei, because we have a presence in multiple industry, whatever we found in an industry problem, we bring it to the school, universities, classrooms. So this is how we train our students. And now, if you see this model, so exactly the model is showing how autonomous vehicle actually works, how to do the lane change and all. This is the real example that I'm showing. This is university, we already implemented that, and this is how students are learning from the classroom. So this is not like before, that it's only bookish knowledge. So this is more like a student are practicing, doing the hands-on. So we call it AI lab. We are implementing this globally now. Now, when I was my primary school, I was with this type of classroom. So what happened is my professor write in a chalkboard. Nowadays also many classrooms are like this. But mostly when I was my university, we had a projector. Even nowadays, I visit many classrooms. Many of the classroom I visit, I find that many projectors. Some projectors are very expensive, by the way. But anyway, if we use the projector, we cannot say it's still a smart, right? Because it's not connected. And now what we are talking about, the interactive classroom, the level 3. So this interactive classroom gives couple of benefits for the students, for the teachers, and for the management as well. And the fourth one is the innovative classroom. This is more like, in one university or one school, you can have one or two classrooms in these days, right? This is more like innovative classroom. Now, little bit on realistic way, this is the time to make more like interactive classroom. How we do that? As I mentioned, we implemented U-Learning. U-Learning is one of our partner, DeepSeek and Huawei. Together with us, we build a platform. That one is called a Smart Classroom 3.0 platform. That 3.0 platform solves a couple of problems. One is it helps before class, during class, and after class. So before class, the platform is capable enough to prepare the lesson content for professors. During class, it helps teachers, students to do all this class interaction, quiz, and everything. And after class, it provides the reports and it does the assessment. Now, when I was a student, I found that who is the best student in my school, my country, by the grading number is very easy. But I did not know who is the best teacher. I know some teachers, of course, had some best teacher award, but what was the assessment process, right? With this system, now the classing, we also have one option, it's called recording classroom. From that recording classroom, if the students and teacher has more interaction during the class, whole year, so there are 37 parameters of judging the teacher. So we can find the best teacher of the country and we can put the best teachers, like the class online, so all the country can learn from the best teacher. So physics, chemistry, mathematics, any of the subjects, because best teacher, good teacher, they all want to stay in the capital city or best school, best university in the country, right? So now this way we can make sure that education is not only for that specific, or good quality education is not for that specific school or university. This is now for all, right? So this is how we also implemented this in China. There is a city, it's called Dongguan. So whole city we bring under one education platform. So we find the best teacher and I put their lesson online and the other students can learn from there as well. Smart campus. When one student comes to the classroom, nowadays many people use 2 mobile phones. So first they connect their laptop, second maybe mobile phone, someone have a tablet, someone have 2 mobile phones. So the statistics is saying that 2.5 devices, if any student goes to class, they connect 2.5 devices. And all these devices, they connect with the, they use for the high bandwidth, for example, video streaming and also high quality of network that they require. So we make sure that every schools and every universities, they have the high quality of networks. And interestingly, mostly universities are okay. You can have your IT professional, but think about the primary schools. In a country, have thousands of primary schools. It's impossible to have at least one IT engineer or have an IT team in each and every school. It's very difficult, right? No country actually it's very difficult for any country. So now we provide the campus network for entire country, and that is easily, you can manage your network. You don't need any IT professional in each and every school. You can manage centralized manner. Apart that, we have multiple ways to secure your campus. As Huawei, we also have 170 plus countries we have offices. The similar solution we are also using inside our company to secure our campus. And not only that, we also have our own learning platform. We call it iLearning. So that platform also we're using the similar type of solution. So the same solution we are bringing to the universities and schools to provide nationwide smart campus solution. Datas are sweet. Datas are very important, especially for research data. Whenever you have, yeah, sure. So whenever you have some research data, that is more sweet. If your data is not stolen today, don't worry, tomorrow it will be stolen. So someone will come and hack your data, that's for sure. This is something happening in the industry. So now, as Huawei, we want to make sure that your data is easy to process, you can process it quickly, and your data is secure. So whenever you come to us about the HPC solution or any of the scientific research solution, that we have multiple different platforms that can cover your scientific research. And I always say this, and this is important, I think. I found that two things are important. One is, of course, like the technology. Another is experience. Technology I can learn from anywhere, or I can get it from anywhere. But the experience is different. It cannot be learned, right? So Huawei has 120 plus countries experiences. Maybe if you need any digital transformation support, or if you think that you are facing some challenges, let us know. Maybe we face the same challenge in somewhere else, right? We will bring the same experience to you. Maybe that can solve your problem. And I found that if we want to develop tomorrow, this is the best time to invest in education. Let's work with Huawei. Let's see what we can do together. And I would like to thank everyone for listening to this session. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mehedi, for this insightful presentation about Huawei technology in supporting education and research. Now, please allow me to invite Ms. Joy Owango from TCC Africa for her presentation in collaboration with her colleague, Ms. Nicole. It's about catalyzing open science in Africa through advocacy and strategic partnerships. Ms. Joy.
Good afternoon, everybody. The first person who is going to speak is Ms. Nicole online, and then I will follow shortly. I'll be working on the slides. Okay, you may begin, Nicole.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please continue.
Okay. So thank you, everyone, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to you today on our presentation. Our presentation is revolving around the scope of open science and why it's an important aspect, turning it not only from something that we talk about, but into a practical world today. And that's through advocacy and strategic partnerships. But before I delve into that any further, I'd like to talk about who we are as an organization, as a center. We are called the Training Center in Communication, in abbreviation TCC Africa, and we are a capacity building trust that's based at the University of Nairobi in Kenya. established in 2006, and our main area of focus is on building equity in higher education through capacity strengthening to improve research output and visibility in scholarly and science communication. As a center, we focus on 4 focal key areas. Number 1 is open science and advocacy, where we are fostering global stakeholder engagement in adopting open science, best practices in open science, and which we're going to talk about more in our slides. We have our open infrastructure, where we are promoting fair data sharing through our project, our infrastructure project called the Africa PAD Alliance. Then we also have capacity building, where we train early career researchers in scholarly and science communication on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. And then we have higher education stakeholder engagement program, which are where we drive partnerships to develop innovative and sustainable solutions in higher education. So our mission, our objectives, and our values are at the core of what we do as a center and foster our engagement with every stakeholder that we interact with in each of our focal programs. So I want to just explain to you a little bit on our collaborative strategy. How do we collaborate with various stakeholders at different levels? Because we engage with a multi-group of stakeholders from all over the continent. But how do we do that as a center? So we focus on 3 pillars. That is on, we have the academia and research institutions. These are the knowledge creators. They are the ones who go down to the field, do the research work that we see online. So we interact with them through our capacity building, training them on scholarly and science communication. Then we have policy and governance. This is now where the open science bit fits, because we interact with, we are trying to create an enabling environment for our academic community and those who are doing research to have an enabling environment for them to carry out their research and share their research output out there for it to be seen across the continent and the world. Then we have industry and infrastructure partners. Now, this is where we become innovative and apply what we are learning in creating secure systems, and that's by collaborating with various partners who are involved in technology, creating digital tools and platforms. And this is now where also we've created our project, which is the Africa PAD Alliance, which is also it's an infrastructure program focusing on securing the African research output. So then, aside from that, now my next slide, I'm going to talk about, how is open science? How do we revolve around the scope of open science? It revolves around 2 aspects. That's on community building and engagement. They go really hand in hand, but usually the first step is engagement. And what is engagement in this scope? Engagement is bringing people together around shared goals and challenges. By us sitting all of us together and interacting, we realize that we are all facing the same challenges, but we have different solutions at which we can come together and build a community. Now, strong communities amplify collective action, ensuring that open science principles translate into real-world impact, from shaping national policies to improving research practices. So open science, the whole scope of open science advocacy and, interacting with partners and all that revolves around how are you engaging with stakeholders and the target audience on the ground, and what are you doing after that? What actions are being developed after that? And that's true by first coming together, and that's building a community and fostering the way forward together. So for my next slide, I'm going to just briefly explain how building an open science community works. It starts with collaboration and shared learning. By bringing stakeholders together in one sitting space, we exchange ideas, practices. We exchange, these are the challenges, but this is a solution I have. And then going down from there, once we realize we all are contributing in one way or another, we form collaborative networks. Once we're brought together as stakeholders, we form networks that share knowledge and resources to co-create solutions that are aligned with our African priorities and needs and interests. Then we move forward together to, jointly come up with a collaborative action, the collaborative way forward, because one key thing we've noticed is there's a lot of silo work being done. People are working on their own. But by building an open science community, we're able to all collectively come together and strive a formidable way forward. We're implementing best practices. We're implementing best policies that will cater for our needs and address our challenges. Then, through collaborative actions, at the end of the day, we are forming sustainable partnerships because collaborations grow into lasting partnerships that sustain impact, strengthen capacity, and advance open science across the region and across the continent. So, what program are we running as a Center in Open Science? We called it the Advancing Open Science Program, Advancing Open Science in Africa program. And this is a program that began in 2021 through our partnership with the Public Library of Science, that's PLOS. And the aim of this partnership is to amplify the representation of African research in global scholarly publishing. So by coming together at TCC Africa, a local organization working with local stakeholders, and PLOS coming together to design open science pathways to cater way forward or interests or create draft policies to address the interests and needs of African researchers. So I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Joy, who's going to take you through what we've done from the continent perspective, who are the partners we've formed, and what is the goal of these partnerships, and what we call as the way forward for open science in the North African region. Over to you, Ms. Joy.
Thank you, Nicole. So what I'm going to take you through is the kind of partnerships we've created on the continent. And what I'm actually very proud of is that the fact that we're from East Africa, so pretty much sub-Saharan Africa, is that we've managed to also create partnerships in North Africa, making this project, this particular program, completely continental in nature. So we started in partnership with PLOS, that is our primary partner. We started our advocacy activities in East Africa, and we partnered with the East African Science and Technology Commission. So we have been very strategic about the kind of partnerships we are creating, whereby we want governments to come up with policies or national instruments. And in sub-Saharan Africa, because of the largeness of the number of countries, so what we've done is that we've worked with the respective community parliaments. So in East Africa, we worked with the East African Community Parliament, and under it, the East African Science and Technology Commission. The result of that is that we have the first regional open science policy included in the STI regional policy in East Africa. So that means 7 countries, 7 ministers of science, technology, and innovation, 7 presidents signed that document, making it the first of its kind, literally, on the continent, whether you're looking at sub-Saharan Africa or North Africa. Now, what has come out of that is that each respective country now is creating its national instrument. So we are working closely with them to create these national instruments. Now, in the case of Kenya, the Ministry of Education wants a national open science strategy, and we are working on that with them. In the case of Tanzania, we look at what the priority area is for the country, because not all countries actually want a policy. They want a document or a national support system. So in the case of Tanzania, they wanted a national support system, and theirs was on publishing. So we helped them create a national guideline on publishing. And later on, we ended up training, this was in August this year, then we ended up training all their publishers and all their editors on how they can improve publishing practices and make their journals as competitive as possible. And also, most importantly, have their journals listed by the government. Because you see, the government was putting the list of publishers that they should work with, and there were very few Tanzanian journals. So it was looking at best practices in journal publishing. And that was signed by the Minister of Education. In Uganda, they are looking at including open science in the Tertiary Education Act. But Uganda is actually quite interesting. What they wanted was, they realized, as Nicole said, they realized that a lot of conversations on open science was happening in silos. So we were tasked in bringing first of all, doing a survey, a national survey, and identifying who the open science stakeholders were, and which we did, and we brought them together. And we had a meeting with them in September this year with the objective of coming up with open science principles which will be included in the Tertiary Education Act. So as we speak, we are working with the National Council for Science and Technology, the Ministry of Education, in putting this document together. And in turn, this is going to be presented next year after elections. You know, Africa and the elections, things slow down. So in Southern Africa, we worked with 2 universities and 2 governments. So we worked with UCT, University of Cape Town, and University of Pretoria, and at that point we worked with the government of South Africa and the Namibian government. And this was also in partnership with the Association of African Universities, where we brought in all the leadership of both countries. And we had a blended workshop on open science and why it is important for it to be adopted within our institutions. Now, in West Africa has adopted pretty much what we've done in East Africa. So the economic the Economic Organization for West African States, known as ECOWAS, based in Abuja, Nigeria, reached out to us and wanted to know how we could aid them in including open science principles in their ECOPOST, which is the ECOWAS Policy, Science and Technology document. As we speak, open science principles have already been included. It has been signed by all the presidents in ECOWAS. So we are looking at about, as of now, there are 11 member states. There were 13 and they reduced. So all the presidents and all the ministers of science and technology. What is left is for it to be published and made public. But you can see these are regional policies that are happening. So pretty much there's winds of change. What happens in sub-Saharan Africa, which we are noticing, is that before you have any conversation on open science, you need to have the conversation at a regional level before you discuss at the national level. Then the rest of the conversations change. And we have been very conscious because Africa has over 2,000 languages, so we are using integration languages whenever we're having these conversations. But most importantly, we need to recognize some of the regions where open science is quite weak because of language barriers. And Francophone and Arab regions are the ones we've noted that are really struggling when it comes to the adoption of open science due to the language, most of the time due to the language. And then now, after ECOWAS, so we had the Ghanaian Tertiary Education working closely with us, and that is the Commission for Higher Education in Ghana on advocating for open science, and we are working closely with them. And most recently, the government of Liberia reached out to us to aid them in coming up with a national open science strategy, but most importantly, a national guideline, similar to what we are doing in Tanzania. Now, I'm really happy about, as I said, I'm really happy about getting into North Africa, and it started with our partnership with ASREN. That was such an amazing partnership because, let's be honest, the cultural dynamics, the political dynamics are different from sub-Saharan Africa. So this has been such an exciting learning process, and the openness that North Africa has in adopting open science and giving this oneness of the continent. So we see it as one African problem where we need to adopt open science regardless of the region you're in. So with ASREN, we had the government of Tunisia reach out to us, so we are going to work with them next year in looking at ways on how they can adopt open science. And in Morocco, we worked with the Center for National Research and Science and Technology, and we started with a national open science dialogue that we hosted in Morocco in July this year. So our partnership with ASREN, the goal is to strengthen research visibility, capacity building, and policy integration along the region, especially in Northern Africa, and we are looking at spreading it as much as we can within the MENA region. Expand open science advocacy, support researchers, bridge gaps in scholarly publishing and equitable access. And this partnership has literally made the advocacy activities we are doing at a continental level. So I really take pride in the fact that whenever we are having conversations on open science about Africa, we don't talk about sub-Saharan Africa, we talk about Africa. So it is literally North, East, West, and Southern Africa. This was the conference that we co-hosted together with ASREN to the Association of African Universities. And it was in partnership also with CNRST, and what Morocco is proposing to do and advocating to do is come up with a national open science strategy. And we look forward to seeing this and we are looking forward to working closely with them in implementing it. these are also some of the challenges we are seeing. It's one thing you have a national strategy or a national instrument. It's another thing to implement it. And this is why the conversations we're having with ASREN goes beyond just, we need you to get a policy. It is how do you implement it, how do you institutionalize it so that it's part of the process. So why is engagement important to us? It drives collaboration. We need to, open science is about collaboration. We need to break those silos and we need to work together. It breaks cultural barriers and it makes it easy for us to work together. It builds trust. If there is anything to show is the kind of trust that we have built between Sub-Sahara and North Africa. This, as I keep on saying, it's a very exciting type of partnership. Because as I say, the regions are totally different, the politics are totally different as well. It enhances inclusivity, and we are looking at supporting policy alignment. It's not an issue of coming up with an open science national instrument or instrument. You need to see what does the government want, and how can we include open science in that ecosystem? What does the region want? What is their priority? And that is how we've worked in coming up with some of these successful case studies. And also, of course, open science fosters sustainability. It is all about building equity, and that's what we're trying to do. Not all institutions can afford resources, and open science is one of the ways in building that equity. And as I wind up, I need to emphasize why we need to have collaborations. Earlier in the day, there was a speaker who said that there's a need for more Arab collaborations within the country, within the region. Collaboration is key for any open science activity to take place. So number one, you'll end up avoiding duplication of efforts. Money is scarce. We are all running for the same funding. It makes sense to collaborate and seek the funders than duplicate the same activities. It gives you greater visibility. We've had a few case studies. The Egyptian Knowledge Bank was sharing with us some of their case studies. So it gives you greater visibility. You end up having collective solutions, like what Sesame is doing, supporting the entire region, okay? You end up having broader engagement and inclusivity, and you end up having efficiency and alignment as it goes with what the governments want, or even the institutions want. And finally, when you have strategic stakeholder collaboration, you end up building capacity equally for all the stakeholders that you're looking at, so that it's just not select partners who are benefiting from this. So thank you so much for listening to both of us.
Many thanks to Ms. Joy and Ms. Nicole for this presentation. The efforts from TCC Africa are impressive in Africa and at the continental level as well. I'm sure that partnership with ASREN as well will bring added value to North Africa and the Arabic region in general. Our next speaker is Dr. Douaa Mugahid from Harvard University, jointly with Dr. Ahmed Barakat from Technical University of Munich. Her presentation will be about how to build an enduring Arab scientific society.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to be here in Jordan for the first time and in this group with the shared values and a shared vision for the region. My name is Douaa, and I'm joined with my colleague Ahmed Barakat, who couldn't be here in person, but he is on Zoom in case we get to questions and answers. Clicker. Okay. Is this right? Okay, so an overview of my talk today. First, I'll start by defining the scientific endeavor. I think everyone in the room has been talking about science and research, but the definition of what science and research is has evolved and is different in the perception of the minds of different people. So how we define it at the Scientific Arab Forum, how we view MENA leadership in science and technology 3.0, and why we need scientific societies to enable this vision, and finally learnings from the Scientific Arab Forum's experience to date. So how we define the scientific endeavor is that it's a systematic, organized effort to gain knowledge and solve problems using scientific methods. In other words, it involves the purposeful pursuit by researchers, academics, and in industry, combining science, whether life, physical, or social science, mathematics, and technology, to understand the natural world and ourselves, obviously, to address real-world challenges. And as is mentioned today, science is the bedrock of innovation. So if we talk about deep tech innovation, which builds on deep expertise in science and technology, we're also talking about the same process, but the ultimate goal of that process is to create technologies and companies to address these real-world challenges. So knowledge that doesn't translate into technology development that can be deployed as companies that bring back economic and societal benefit is really not very useful to any of us. So to summarize how science works today, it is fueled by capital, done by researchers who leverage infrastructure and different types of technology to generate samples, data, code, synthesize knowledge as papers, and networks and connections between those scientists. The idea is, obviously, if we're doing this right, is that this knowledge and samples and code and all of that is passed on to another group of researchers to build on that, and eventually it improves health outcomes, brings in added economic value, and leads to the development of new technologies. And this money and the technology gets leveraged by the scientific enterprise, and so on and so forth. But clearly today this cycle is somewhat broken. I argue because it's not organized enough and it's not directed enough, but we see that in the MENA region there is increasing policy to help shape this endeavor, as we've all learned today. And the striking thing is, for the past 20 years at least, and much longer obviously, research has been restricted to about 6 countries in the world. So China, Germany, India, Japan, the US, and the UK are the major contributors to the generation of knowledge in the world. So what can we learn from this experience? Where is the Arab world, and how can we differentiate ourselves in this increasingly competitive landscape? What we've learned, or I think what I wanted to highlight in this talk, is that leadership, industrial leadership and economic leadership in these countries is reflected very much by what they publish the most on. So if we look at, for example, India, which we know is leading in information and computer science technology, they have a very large representation of research output in that sector. The same thing for China, which is leading very aggressively in the engineering front. They produce a lot of research output in that field. Now the US, the EU, and Japan dominate the health sciences and biological sciences sectors, I argue for historical reasons, because entry into these fields is very, very expensive in terms of infrastructure that is needed and the depth of knowledge that has not been democratized to the same extent as other fields. So as we think about our position as the MENA region and how we want to sort of catapult ourselves into science and technology 3.0. And I say 3.0 because we shouldn't forget that we are the bedrock of civilization. So innovation at that time and technology, with its very limited, although it's very limited to what we can do today, is what came out of this region. 2.0 is the Islamic civilization, and 3.0, I hope, is the future of the region today. And how we think we can sort of differentiate ourselves, obviously, and really position ourselves successfully in this day and age is we need to leverage the accumulation of knowledge across the globe, as well as technological development and the superb talent at the very cutting edge of research that exists, unfortunately, outside of the borders of the MENA region, but also within the MENA region. And the idea is that, as I mentioned, it should be systematic and organized to some extent. And our view is we need to solve regional and hyper-regional problems by producing data, code, knowledge, so contributing to the knowledge base globally, but also using this knowledge to provide technological solutions, so IP protected, obviously, that are the foundation of companies that have ideas and technologies with export potential. And I emphasize export potential because the global purchasing power does not currently reside in the Middle East. So if we want to make the best out of the technologies that we develop in the region, we should not forget that we are part of a much larger world that is increasingly connected and the stabilizers include virtual interactions, the globalization of supply chains, and global talent flow. And we also share a lot of the same disruptors, whether pandemics, climate change, aging, and geopolitical changes. And so how is the technology that is developed in the MENA region going to be exported to areas that share very same problems, that maybe have higher sort of economic power and can leverage these technologies and bring in money to the region to help sustain and continue development. So I mentioned all of this to give you an idea of where SAF sits in as a society for scientists. As I mentioned, scientists are pillars of the scientific innovation system. So without social capital, without the people, and investing in the people, we don't have much to build on. And I always say science is a social endeavor, and I truly believe this idea of a lone scientist who is going to come up with something creative that's going to disrupt how the world operates no longer exists today. So the Scientific Arab Forum's vision is to make science a household topic in the MENA region, which means everyone, children, adults, grandparents, should be thinking and talking about how science has an effect on their lives, how it saves lives, how it saves the environment, how it improves the quality of their life and improves economic production in their household. And how we try to do that is by promoting scientific excellence, communicating scientific knowledge in Arabic so that people can understand and influence science policy in the region, because scientists are important stakeholders in the scientific and innovation process. We do this specifically at the moment by creating a visible community of outstanding scientists and scientists, researchers, and science communicators with very deep ties to the region. So an understanding of the local context, obviously, and to each other, because as we mentioned before, collaboration is absolutely important, and interdisciplinary collaboration is super important. We try to promote our members to global and regional leadership in science and provide thought leadership in the scientific community, as well as shape the intellect of the general public through what we publish in Arabic. And for the rest of the talk, I will focus on how these 2 points, 3 and 4, bring together the members of the community with a shared cause, and how that sort of helps us build a sense of community within SAF. So our community started in 2020 to fill in a gap during the COVID-19 pandemic with information about the ongoing changes and what science was saying about COVID. And we persist today as a community of scientists and science communicators, including university students, as well as early and mid-career researchers and science communicators. We span many different disciplines: life science, physical, and social sciences. And we have members from different parts of the Arab region, although we're Egypt heavy, and I can explain why if anyone is interested. And we're seeking to expand our membership base to include more members from different countries in the region. The products or the things that we do together target a broad audience. So we target children ages 6 and above, all the way up to the elderly family members. And we hope to, in the future, to start engaging policymakers, although we don't actively do that at the moment. So what are the things that we come together to do? So we summarize and translate articles at the cutting edge in their various domains and publish them online. We write editorials that help shape and inform the communities that follow us, as well as provide updates and news about what scientists in the forum and broader scientific community are doing, and what scientific breakthroughs are coming out every day and affecting our lives. We also arrange an annual virtual conference that brings together more seasoned Arab researchers to engage and inform and educate early stage researchers, as well as innovators and science journalists in the region. And some key metrics that have come out of this: we get very high numbers of registries with peak attendance about 200 individuals. This increases our visibility on social media a lot, which suggests that there's a need for this kind of scientific collaboration and this kind of venue for scientists online. And as I mentioned, we try to engage science journalists, and they often end up coming to these events. And while we've focused in the past on life science conferences, this year is the first organized by my colleague Ahmed Barakat and his team in the physical sciences, celebrating 100 years of quantum, which we think is a strategic or should be a strategic priority in the region. The registration is still open, so if any of you are keen on attending, there's still time to register. We also organize scientific writing competitions to engage and identify emerging talent from the region. One of those is done in collaboration with the Science Journalism Forum. This year, we organized one in collaboration with the Göttingen Expansion Microscopy Forum, which allowed 2 researchers from the MENA region an opportunity to engage with leaders in that field, including Nobel laureate Stefan Hell. And because we're an organization, we can't do everything we want. We try to engage in strategic partnerships. So I mentioned Science Journalism Forum. We also engage with Frontiers for a Young Mind to publish and amplify content that they create for children, as well as Nature Middle East, who, for example, interviewed a number of our female scientists and highlighted them in a podcast recently. So all that said, what are the learnings about how to build a sustainable scientific society? We're still very young, so who knows, we might not exist in a year's time, but we're hoping we will. We think it's important to have a shared vision and mission that attracts like-minded members and encourages them to engage with the community and towards a shared cause. It's important to have an appropriate governance structure. We learned that the hard way. And it's important to have a defined set of activities that align with the mission and vision to which the members of the community are willing to contribute. Meaningful, value-aligned partnerships are very important, including with sources of capital. I didn't mention this, but for example, we recently got funding from Alzheimer's Research UK to promote and inform the Arabic public about dementia and how it affects their lives. And obviously to be a high visibility community online, to attract more people and especially the next generation, so that they can carry the torch forward and keep this as a sustainable effort. And with that said, if anyone in the audience identifies with the goals and the mission and the vision of SAF, please scan this QR code. We're accepting new members, and if any of your trainees or anyone you know might be interested, please pass this along. We'd be very happy to have you. And finally, my only slide in Arabic, I'd like to thank all my colleagues at the Scientific Arab Forum for everything that they've done to keep us going and sustain us until today. And with that, I would like to conclude and encourage you all to follow us on social media and get in touch. And I look forward to interacting and connecting and networking with some of you later. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Dr. Douaa, for this insightful presentation, and all the best luck for your initiative, the SAF initiative. Our next speaker will be Dr. Khalid Saidi from University of Mohammed VI Polytechnic from Morocco. He's from Learning Center there, and he will be talking about shaping the future of academic libraries through innovation. Dr. Khalid?
Thank you. So, thank you first. So, I am Khalid Saidi. I'm the head of the Learning Center. You can say Learning Center or Library at the Mohammed VI Polytechnic University in Morocco. It's based in Vengrir, small city near Marrakesh. So, first, I want to thank Professor Youssef Torban for inviting me to this wonderful event. I'm learning. I'm here to learn because we are discovering this world of open science. First, I want to make a small presentation for our university, Mohammed VI Polytechnic University. If I can say, it's a new university in Morocco. We can say it's a private university, but it's funded by a public institution. And it was inaugurated by His Majesty the King in 2017. So, and from 2018, we were building our library. I mean, building the buildings. And structuring our collection, purchasing books, doing our electronic resources, And then we face new challenges. That's what we will discover in this presentation. So, what is defining the future of academic libraries? I'm speaking about my or our academic library at the university. So, what is defining the future of academic libraries? UMCXP and the ongoing changes in the academic libraries and the learning center transformation via this channel. So, we were traditional academic library. What I mean by traditional academic library, so we limit direct involvement and this interaction with the broader community. All our activities are based on our collections, our books, our electronic resources. So the unique services we are offering to the community is access to resources, access to books. And even for the user experience, even our spaces and user experience is limited because we limited space for group work and social interactions. This is the old version of academic library. We are still a traditional academic library. So what forces are shaping the future of academic libraries? I think, in my opinion, the digital transformation is impacting the academic libraries and the user experience. We have to follow the digital transformation and to improve the digital experience. All those two elements are shaped by the open science. Open science can fit the two elements. Why open science? UMCXP is a corporate university with a core focus on research and education, and open science utilizes digital transformation in order to improve the user experience in the universities. So, what is open science? You don't need a definition. I want to skip this. So, in what ways has open science impacted the academic library? I think, first, publication and access. Open science must tackle the subscription model. We are all struggling with publishers negotiating access, pricing, and so on. So now, it's a research article versus that article. So it must encourage open access initiatives in order to tackle the subscription model. Focus on data research. Now we are focused on the final output, on the articles, on how to access scientific databases, how to access final scientific articles. But the most important thing that we have in all our library is data. We have the data in our laboratories. Our researchers have the data. So we must deal with the data. We must organize this data and make it available for our community. And via this data, we can have a social impact. It's one of the principles of open science. To have the social impact in our community. We can do this without technical advancement, digital tools and platform repositories, and we must develop all this big data and open data initiative in order to follow this new. So, new roles of academic libraries. So there is emerged roles. So we must follow the open research data, open access publication, and we must have data skills, it's a new role, computational skills, and the research and subject matter knowledge. This is new for the academic libraries. Or 22, I think. So, and we have also to strengthen our current roles. We must have skills for developing programs and services because we will develop new services to our communities. Interpersonal skills because we will deal with the research community. And skills for lifelong learning. We have to upscale our staff, our libraries in order to do these services. So, being embedded in the research life cycle guarantees sustainability of research libraries in open science transformation. Consequently, there is a cultural shift, the concept from support or collaboration to the concept of partnership. So we must be partners of our researchers. So libraries assume this role to break and open the whole cycle of research. We are in our libraries. We are inviting people to come to access our collections. Now we have to move to the laboratories and be near the researchers, help them organize their data, help them manage their data, have their own data management strategy, and retrieve the data and make it accessible for the community. So what is the MCSP position in the open science movement? We have some policies. We are still, I talked with Joy, we are still preparing our open access policy, our open science policy, but we have research data management policy and research integrity policy. So open science stakeholder in the UNICEF, the academic library, the learning center, the research departments, and the research organization structure in the UNICEF. So the learning center transformation toward the open science movement. So we have a vision that joins the vision of UNICEF, is excellence in research, education, and social impact. So key element of the vision in order to follow this. So open science, research, data management, we have developed this, our data repository. We have to foster our scientific publication and open access support, research support, and promote open science culture, doing the advocacy for open science in our researchers. So for digital transformation, introduction of smart services, now we have a library assistant robot now, who can do all the things that library assistants can do in the library. I can do presentation, guide you to the shelves, show you where are the books you need. So soon we will fire all our library assistants. So we have to manage our repositories, and we have access to electronic information resources and library tools. User-oriented services, new spaces for group workers, trainings, new services, and cultural activities and information literacy in our services. So how will the LC adapt its organization and services in response? We must do the shifts in the structure of our learning center, the skills and staffing, and the spaces. So in the structure, we must support open science and new mission for the learning center, ensure more specialized services and staff members, and new services related to the service-oriented learning center. The structure, we must add two very important services: research and education support for helping researchers manage their data, and digital repositories and data sets in order to deal at open access and data repositories and library, adding to the traditional roles of the library. So skills and staffing, we must include the jobs for so the traditional work must be done, the shifts and so on, but to the jobs, but we have to upscale also the skill sets of the library staff, because we don't have certified training, traditional training, open science and open access, so we must do the efforts. So data librarianship emerged as the new professional field which applies new skills and specific training to provide. So data support services, including instruction and data training, data management planning guidance, data stewardship and curation, and data visualization. This is the future of librarianship, is the data librarianship. I will skip this because spaces, more learning spaces, we are now asking ourselves, are we going to renovate the existing library or introducing a new library building in order to give more co-working space for our users? So the transformation will be on the organization, from collection-oriented organization, as I said, to research and educational-oriented organization, into skills and staffing, from unspecialized and versatile skills and staff to cultivating specialized and upgraded skills, and the spaces from separated and closed spaces. This is one of our libraries, it's a real picture, to lively, open, and collaborative spaces. So, if the future is through collaboration and sharing of resources, the main change will be the shifts of importance from the library to the library. So the information professional is the library of the future. So upskilling is very important. This work was done in order to present this to a vision from of the Learning Center, and I used the Martin Luther King picture in order to present our vision statement. So our vision is to create a dynamic, open, and collaborative academic library environment that fully supports the research, educational and innovation needs of the ME&CA community through the principles of open science. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Khaled, for this presentation, and your efforts are actually impressive when it comes to digital transformation in your library. Our next speaker will be Mr. Nabil Qasibi from ORCID. He will be highlighting the ORCID and the driving research and innovation, and ORCID collaboration with ASREN as well for the North Africa and the region.
شكرا رائد وشكرا لفريق أسرن. I will try to be very brief. I know this is the end of the day. I don't know where is all the people. But yeah, it's not the same room that we saw this morning. Can I have the slides, please? All right, so I'm Nabil Qasibi. I'm engagement consultant for ORCID. I also work in different initiatives in Africa and in North Africa in promoting open science and open research infrastructure. Today I'm going to talk about ORCID, the Open Research and Contributor ID. This is an identifier for researchers, for contributors to research. And as you can see, that's the identifier, the digital identifier. Its mission is really to disambiguate names. So if I'm Nabil Aziz Qasibi in my passport, I can be Nabil Qasibi in a publication, I can be Noor Qasibi in another article. So it really depends on the journal application form, it really depends on the systems used in that journal, system used in different funders, infrastructures. So this is why we have ORCID. ORCID is presenting 3 different services. The ORCID ID, as you can see there in the first offering. The ORCID record, which is like a CV or profile that is connected to the ORCID ID that you can synchronize your metadata with the different other databases, and the ORCID APIs, the different set of application programming interfaces. This is how it looks like. This is where you can add your information, your biography, your employment, your education and qualification, the different keywords and emails and websites and links and other IDs that you want to connect to your ORCID records. Some, let's say, satisfied researchers that publish it or tweet it or used social media to really express their happiness in terms of using ORCID. And then quickly, the vision of ORCID is a world where all who participate in research, scholarship, and innovation are uniquely identified and connected to their contributions across disciplines, borders, and time. And our mission is to enable transparent and trustworthy connections between researchers, their contributions, their affiliations by providing unique persistent identifiers for individuals to use as they engage in their research, scholarship, and innovation activities. Some background about persistent identifiers. What makes a persistent identifier something very important in the open research infrastructure is that it's globally unique. There is identifiers for objects like DOIs, like R keys, like URLs. There are identifiers for people, like ORCID, and there are identifiers for organizations like Ringgold, research organization, registry. There are also other types of identifiers, and as my colleague Joy mentioned, in terms of infrastructure that we want to build in Africa, which is digital object container identifier, which is an identifier really dedicated to indigenous knowledge and cultural heritage. This is just to say that these identifiers are very important in building the global open research infrastructure because they are globally unique, persistent, and resolvable by humans and machines. Why are these identifiers used? Firstly, to provide clarity, to lift ambiguity on names, on objects, and on organizations in the whole open research infrastructure. They facilitate sharing, reuse, and attribution. They provide an accurate picture of activity. They also enable automation and interoperability. As we know, the persistent identifiers are cited within the UNESCO recommendation of open science. This is how bits are used throughout the research life cycle. As you can see here, for grant application, we can have this set of identifiers, DOIs, ORCID, ROR, Raed ID. For grant application and review, you can have the same set. For grant award, you can have DOIs. For grant award again, we can have DOIs, ORCID and ROR. For project registration, we can have the 4 set of identifiers, and it really depends on the use and where these identifiers are needed. And there is a nice study that was made by a company in the UK, where it shows that bits can provide automation and remove the need to rekey data, and that can save the UK higher education sector for around £45 million over 5 years, and Australia for $24 million in a year. So that's what we want really to apply in the Arabic region, is these kind of studies and these kind of exercises to save basically cost and save budget when using open research infrastructure and persistent identifiers. BIDs enable entities in the research ecosystem. They really are connecting different, let's say, pillars in the research ecosystem, from universities to funders to publishers, and all these identifiers will work together and exchange data between each other and the ORCID ID, of course, registry, just to leave this database for these different institutions to feed in their systems whenever they need any data related to those researchers. This is what the researcher can see when they are performing their research, from grant application to grant registration, submission for data management plan, research design, experiments conduct, and then research code, data and other outputs, deposit, preprint submission, and then research article publication. In all these cycles, let's say, or all these steps, persistent identifiers are very much needed in moving or removing these data entry burden in the different systems fields. What is the value of ORCID? Of course, ORCID is eliminating this ambiguity on names. As you can see here, one of the let's say tweets that got very much popular is a researcher saying, "I'm the 38th author." The other one, they say that's not really great, and then he said, let's finish it, "I'm the 38th author called Wang." So that's the thing. If you want to search for a name in a publication where we have a lot of researchers with one name, it's very difficult to find it when you don't have a digital identifier for it. This is also another example where Karim Ramdan can be KB Ramdan in an article, KB Ramdan with another writing and another article, KB Ramdan in another publication or article. This is the different identifiers in the ORCID record and how they are used. And this is how the researchers get having full control of their research, the different sections in their ORCID record, and how they can select the different visibility settings. This is how we put the research in everything where we do, at the center of everything we do. And this is basically how the ORCID record is connected with the different institutions, as we explained, funders, publishers, and institutions. Now, the good news is we have the ORCID ASREN Consortium for the Arab region, and we just integrated that. You can visit the ASREN website and look for the ASREN ORCID Consortium. You will have more information and more details on how to join and to benefit and integrate your systems with ORCID. The Global Participation Fund is also very popular, so you can apply for a fund if you want to adopt ORCID within your institutions. You can also benefit of the membership equity program, which is presenting a lot of discount if you are from a low-income country or low-middle-income country. And these are the type of discounts that you can have: 80% for low-income country and 50% for low-middle-income countries. And these are available for the global community. There is also two grants program, which is the community development and outreach, and then the technical integration program, where ORCID can provide funds to promote those initiatives. And thank you very much. I hope it was not very long, and then we can close this year.
Thank you, Nabil, for this informative presentation where you explained ORCID efforts as one of the main pillars of BIDS providers. Our last but not least speakers will be Dr. Emily from Knowledge E. Dr. Emily, can you hear me? Is Dr. Emily with us online?
Can you hear me? Good afternoon. Well, good evening for me here in Dubai, but good afternoon. I hope you can see my slides. Apologies if the internet connection gets a bit dodgy. I'm Dr. Emily Choynowski, Director of the Forum for Open Research in MENA. Sorry, trying to get my slides to shift. No, go back the other way. There we go. So today, I just very briefly, as I appreciate it is the last presentation of the day, and I'm sure you all want to get off and be doing other things, but I just want to share some highlights from a project mapping the open access journals landscape across the Arab states that the Forum for Open Research in MENA and Knowledge E have been working on over the last year. Our goals with this project are to improve understanding, to make the data sets available, to support strategic planning, and to really try and support effective regional collaboration. And we believe this exercise is useful because effective planning requires comprehensive and accurate insights. Without these, robust strategies cannot be developed or implemented. We've mapped 6,000 journals, of which, for the purposes of this presentation today, I've excluded those which are inactive, those which are in Iran, and those which are not open access. And this leaves us with 2,529 active journals. Now, I'm not saying this is every journal in the region. What I'm saying is that this is every journal that we've found in the region that conforms to these criteria so far. And to make initial analysis more manageable, we grouped these into 4 regional blocks. And as you can see in the chart here, the majority of the journals are in North Africa, followed by the Gulf. There are 18 languages accepted by the journals in our database. Unsurprisingly, perhaps, the most common are English, Arabic, and French. 90%, so that's 90 in case I'm not very clear over the internet, 90% of the database journals accept English manuscripts. Meanwhile, just 50% of the database accept Arabic submissions and 25% accept French content. And you can see here some of the other dominant languages in the first chart. Interestingly, you can also see in the second chart that this pattern, this sort of disparity, is really replicated at the regional level, as I said, as you can see. Of course, the picture is clouded by the fact that 86% of the journals are ostensibly bilingual or multilingual. And of these, 543 journals only publish English and Arabic together, and 465 journals publish Arabic, English, and French content, or at least that's what their websites say. And so all of this seems relatively inclusive. However, when we look at single language journals, the picture is rather different. 44%, that's almost half of the entire database, will only accept English language content. Meanwhile, less than 8% of the database, so just 197 journals, will only accept Arabic language submissions. When it comes to subject field analysis, we were actually very surprised that social sciences and humanities account for the largest volumes. However, on reflection, we thought that perhaps this trend might reflect the inherent localization associated with many of these subjects, whereas a number of the STEM fields can have a more globally applicable process, a sort of more generic approach to things. So local research from within the region can find a home in journals outside the region more easily than, say, work on Arab literature or history. Now, in the interest of streamlining this presentation, because I know we have a short time frame, here I am focused on 2 of the open access financial models that are available. So we're looking in this slide at Gold, which is where authors pay an article processing charge or an APC to publish in the journal and make the content open access, and Diamond, where there are no author charges and the journal is free to readers and free for authors to publish in. The other category here is an aggregation of green open access, where the content can go into a repository and be accessed there for free, and hybrid models, where individual articles can be open access, but the journal as a whole is a subscription model. And really interestingly, and this is very exciting for those of us who do operate in the sort of open access space in particular, when we look at the region overall, more than half of all the journals in the database use the Diamond open access model, whereas only around 40% use Gold. Now, of course, some of these journals were launched with an eye on the potential revenue streams for organizations that own them, and that would be the Gold journals. However, given the high rate of Diamond open access journals, with 61% of journals in North Africa, 34% in the Gulf, 56% from sub-Saharan African Arab states, and 17% in the Levant, it really is evident that in many cases the journal owners have simply internalized the cost, rightly viewing these publications as valuable assets that showcase their faculty research and enhance their institutional prestige. However, there is one caveat to this slide, which I didn't include as a graphic here, which is only 8 countries out of the 22 Arab states have dominant, like Diamond as the dominant model. So for the majority of them, Gold is still the dominant model, or subscription models, but Diamond is such a large proportion overall that as an aggregate, it accounts for more across the whole region. However, it's when we come to ownership that I think the data becomes most interesting. For the purposes of this project, we designated 5 ownership categories: university, learned society, medical organisation, philanthropic foundation or funder, and publisher. and we discovered that 66% of the journals in our database are owned by universities, 22% are owned by learned societies, and just 8% by publishers, which is wildly different than many of the other regions in the world, and a real testament to the ability of the Arab education sector and research communities to collaborate and build those community-led vehicles for research distribution. When we look at the preferred financial model for each university, each ownership category, we find that 52% of university owners see the journals as investment assets and opt for the diamond model, whereas 34% opt for revenue generation via the gold model. And interestingly, those numbers are inverted for learned societies, where the majority of learned society journals are gold and less of them use the diamond model. Now, one of the most contentious topics for anyone operating either in open science in particular or scholarly communications in general is indexing. And when we look at the indexing for the journals database, it's where the numbers start to be more concerning. So we see that only 24% of the journals in our database are included in the DOAJ, the Directory of Open Access Journals, 11% in Scopus, and 7% in the Web of Science. In fact, as you can see here, most of the journals in our database are not included in any of the major globally recognized indexes. Now, in part, this is due to lack of appropriate metadata practices and journal management protocols, and we identified a number of issues across the dataset with metadata and journal management which would preclude acceptance by these indexes. However, there are also other reasons as well, which we're all familiar with: the prioritization of global north, the language barriers, and so on. And this is particularly obvious when we start to look at the language of those journals accepted into these indexes. Because while bilingual journals that say in their scope and aims that they accept Arabic content are seeing their performance improve, those that only accept Arabic remain very limited in number when we look at these indexes. So there are 241 journals from our database that are indexed in the DOAJ, which accept Arabic language content, but just 40 that are Arabic language only. Meanwhile, 26 of the bilingual journals are included in Scopus, but only 2 Arabic-only journals. And in Web of Science, while there are 6 bilingual journals, there are no Arabic publications from our database at all accepted into this index. So I'll just conclude here because, as I said, this is a very brief overview of our findings. What are our initial conclusions? First, the region's journal growth is very strong. 71% of the journals that we've mapped were launched in the last 15 years. But overall, the number of journals remains much lower than in other regions. Secondly, journal visibility and credibility are negatively impacted by poor metadata practices and poor journal management. And that's something that the region as a whole and individual subject fields really need to address to ensure a long-term and fruitful growth of local research. Thirdly, local research output vehicles and local language research are often undervalued, both locally and globally, and I'm sure we've all seen examples of that over the last few years. Fourthly, the dominance of English language content is exacerbated by the emphasis on global north outputs and ranking values. And finally, on a more promising note, the prominence of diamond open access journals offers an example of how this model can be successful and sustainable and allows the region to really serve as a beacon, a lighthouse for this going forwards. That being said, overall, I think the outlook for the region's open access journals landscape is extremely positive. First of all, it's important to remember, sorry, my apologies, it's my diabetes alert going off. I think it thinks I've dropped dead. First of all, it's important to remember that indexing is not a true reflection of the impact and value of the journals to the researchers who read and publish in them. Many of these publications are extremely influential and well established within their fields and within the region. Moreover, the Arab region provides a really powerful example of how the diamond model can be sustainable when journals are perceived as valuable assets, with global prestige and regional impact serving as the targeted return on investment. Finally, although a lack of formalised national and regional policy structures might be considered a drawback, there is no denying that it has also really encouraged grassroots movements to flourish, though a caveat to that remains that the lack of funding and over-reliance on volunteers for many of these organisations means that they are not most likely sustainable over the longer term. But overall, I think we have a really positive outlook for open access in particular and open science in general. And if anyone's interested, we are going to be publishing the data underlying all of these findings in more detail shortly, and I'd be happy to share highlights with anyone who wants them. I will stop sharing my screen now, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Romili, for being with us and for waiting us for this long time, and for the informative presentation as well about the set of the publishing, open access publishing in the region. By this presentation, we come to the end of our session and the end of our first day of the year. Thank you all for being with us. And see you tomorrow on the stream. You have a message to deliver today? Yes. Michael, Christine.
We hope to see many of you tomorrow. We have many important sessions to take. For example, we'll have the Women's STEM session, a very important session. We'll start at 8:30. And then we will have the Young Researchers session. We have a call at ASREN that we invite master and PhD students from around the Arab region to come forward with their proposals, and after a vote from a scientific committee, they are shortlisted. They come here, they present, and then based on their presentation, we have an audience voting to decide who's the best participation award for this year. So I hope to see many of you. As well, we will have sessions including our partners from CCK, from Renew, Raed NCC, Nokia, with a session called Smart and Sustainable Systems, Innovation in Energy, Data and Connectivity. And then we'll take off to EH26. We will give an overview and we'll announce the winner of the Young Research session, and then we'll announce where will be EH26. So I hope to see many of you. Please, thank you very much for this today. Thank you.